Hello learners. Today in this lesson we will study about different forms of writing. Writing, as we know, is a medium of expressing our thoughts, ideas and feelings. It is a way by which we communicate our thoughts to others. The way we decide to communicate depends on our purpose of writing. As per our purpose, we select a specific form of writing from different forms of writing. What are these forms of writing? Now let's study this. There are 6 different forms of writing: descriptive, expository, narrative, persuasive, argumentative, and essays of definition. Each form of writing has a specific purpose and hence it is selected accordingly. We will be discussing all these forms one by one. Let's start with first form of writing, that is descriptive writing. As it's clear from its title, descriptive, that is related to describing. We use this form of writing when we wish to describe about a person, place, topic, event, and so on. It is a detailed written account of a specific experience or object or a person. This form of writing uses rich, descriptive language. The author uses adjectives, similes and metaphors, visualizations, and sensory details to enhance the reader's experience. Now, let us discuss some significant characteristics of descriptive writing. First of all, descriptive writing has a clear focus. The reader clearly understands the main focus and intention of the writer. Secondly, descriptive writing has rich sensory details. Writer describes the focused person, place, or object in such rich details that it appeals to the reader's sense of sight, touch, listening, smell, and taste. Thirdly, in order to enrich the description, the writer makes use of similes and metaphors. The writer uses these literary devices to ensure that the reader is able to picture the person, place, or object clearly. Fourth, descriptive writing is well organized. It is written properly to portray the actual description clearly. Now, let us understand descriptive writing with some examples. Please note how the author has used rich language to describe his focused person, place, or object. I take my first example from the famous novel Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, written by J.K. Rowling. I will share a paragraph using descriptive form of writing. So let's see. It was lit by thousands and thousands of candles that were floating in midair over 4 long tables where the rest of the students were sitting. These tables were laid with glittering golden plates and goblets. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers were sitting. The hundreds of faces staring at them looked like pale lanterns in the flickering candlelight. Harry looked upward and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. It was hard to believe there was a ceiling there at all, and that the great hall didn't simply open onto the heaven. I hope you must have noticed how J.K. Rowling has portrayed the picture of the hall from the eyes of the lead character, Harry Potter. Now, let's look at another example from a famous story, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, written by Roald Dahl. Mr. Wonka was standing all alone, just inside the gates of the factory. What an extraordinary little man he was! He had a black top hat on his head. He wore a tailcoat made of a beautiful plum-colored velvet. His trousers were bottle green, his gloves were pearly grey, and in one hand he carried a fine gold-topped walking cane. Covering his chin, there was a small, neat, pointed black beard, a goatee. Oh, his eyes! His eyes were most marvelously bright. They seemed to be sparkling and twinkling at you all the time. You must have noticed how author have sketched the entire picture of Mr. Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory owner in front of our eyes with the use of descriptive writing. Now, the next question is that how you can enable your students to engage in descriptive writing in your classrooms. First and foremost, encouraging your students to read stories and novels will always help them to develop this form of writing. In addition to that, there are certain steps which you must keep in mind while encouraging students to write descriptive writing. Now, what are those steps? First of all, ask them to choose a topic. Maybe they can decide to write about their classmates, or they may decide to write about their classroom. Next, ask your students to focus on the main impression, like what they want to focus on that image. Like if they wish to write about their classmates, then what do they wish to emphasize on? Is it a dress, appearance, nature, habits? Remember how Roald Dahl described Willy Wonka? Similarly, if they wish to describe their classroom, then again they need to focus on what will be their main emphasis. Just again revisit how J.K. Rowling described the hall. Thirdly, to make our description rich, encourage your students to make rich use of words. Use of similes and metaphors will help in making the description clear, specific, and rich. Last, in order to maintain readers' interest, encourage your students to use rich sensory details. Description that appeal to the reader's sense of sight, touch, listening, smell, and taste must be included to keep readers' interest alive. I hope we are now clear with descriptive writing. So now let's come to the second form of writing, that is narrative writing. Narrative writing is related to narration. It includes writing about one's experiences in the form of a story, essay, fairy tale, biographical sketches, and autobiographies. This writing style can be used by writers, scholars, historians, and highly imaginative scientists for sharing their stories. Every narrative writing has 5 main elements, that is, plot, setting, character, conflict, and theme. Let us take an example of narrative writing to understand it properly. I have chosen the story, The 12 Dancing Princesses, from Grimm's Fairy Tales for explaining narrative writing and its element. Now, let us read the introductory section of the story, The 12 Dancing Princesses. There was a king who had 12 beautiful daughters. They slept in 12 beds, all in one room, and when they went to bed, the doors were shut and locked up. But every morning, Their shoes were found to be quite worn though, as if they had been danced in all night, and yet nobody could find out how it happened or where they had been. Then the king made it known to all the land that if any person could discover the secret and find out where it was that the princesses danced in the night, he should have the one he liked best for his wife and should be king after his death. But whoever tried and didn't succeed after 3 days and nights should be put to death. Now this story continues and many princes come to find out where the 12 princesses go for dancing all night. But unfortunately, all of them failed. Next, a soldiers come in the story. He was able to discover the secret with the help of the advice given by an old woman. He tells king that his princesses go in an underground chamber in their room. From there, they reach a place where they meet 12 princes and dance with them all night. King, after knowing the secret, as per the promise, gets his eldest daughter married to the soldier and he becomes the new king. Now, let's look at this fairy tale and analyze its five main elements. First of all, plot. Now, the plot of the story is that the king locks his 12 daughters in their chambers, but every morning their shoes are in tatters, and it's clear they were sleeping all night and they have not stepped out of the chamber. The king is curious to solve the mystery. Next, what's the setting of the story? There are three main settings in the story. First, princess's chamber. It is the place where the 12 princesses live. Secondly, the forest. It is the place where soldier meets the old women. The third setting is the underground chamber. It is the place where the 12 princesses go to meet 12 princes and dance all night. Then, who are the characters of this story? There are many characters in this story, such as the king, 12 princesses, soldiers, old women, 12 princes, and other princes who come to discover the secret of princesses. Now, the conflict in the story. The conflict is the mystery of where the princesses went for a dance. Every morning they return with holes in their shoes as they are locked in their chamber. Hence, where can they go? Now, what's the theme of this fairy tale? The theme of this fairy tale is importance of trust and relationship. The king always locked his daughter in the chamber to ensure that they will not go out. Hence, daughters discovered an underground chamber and never told their father. So, we have seen how this narrative writing clearly brings out plot, setting, character, conflict, and theme. Now, as a teacher, we may think, how can we enable our students to engage in this form of writing? First and foremost, encourage your students to read stories and novels. They must get adequate opportunities to read literature. It will always help them to develop this form of writing. In addition to it, students can be guided to write narrative pieces in following ways. First, ask the students to develop a story map by focusing on WH questions like who, what, where, when, why, and how. These questions will make the basic narrative writing structures. These questions will make the basic narrative writing structure. For example, who are the characters? What will be the setting of the story? Where will be the characters meet? When will events happen? What's the problem? Why it is important to resolve the problem? And how how it gets resolved. Secondly, encourage your students to use vivid and rich language to narrate what's happening. Thirdly, emphasize that students should incorporate visual elements in their narrative writing to involve readers. In this way, they will be able to write narrative writing stories. Now, after discussing narrative writing, we will discuss about third form of writing, that is expository writing. Expository writing is based on providing information which aims to explain, clarify, or define. The purpose of expository writing is to explain facts, ideas, or belief. It is an informational writing. It aims to provide information to reader in the simplest form. Examples are newspaper reports, manuals, journals, encyclopedia. For this form of writing, writer assumes that the reader has no prior knowledge of the topic being described. Now I'll be sharing an example of expository writing with you. It's an excerpt taken from chapter Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom for NCERT textbook of class 10th. Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress ANC party won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries from more than 140 countries around the world. Never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another, said Nelson Mandela in his address. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, and coloreds celebrating together. More than 1 lakh South African men, women, and children of all races sang and danced with joy. You must have noticed how this passage gives information about the inauguration ceremony and the celebration. It is important to note that expository writing has different organizational patterns, which is selected by the writer as per the purpose and need of the topic. Some main styles of expository writing are, like number 1 is description. In this writing pattern, we describe an issue. For example, writing about coronavirus and its ability of spreading so fast. Number 2 is sequence. Now in this expository writing pattern, we discuss the sequence of the focused idea. So let's take the example like how the spread of coronavirus started in China and how it reached India. Now number 3 pattern is comparison. This expository writing pattern is used to make comparison between 2 topics. For example, comparing coronavirus with other virus spreads such as SARS or Ebola. Now, the 4th writing pattern is cause and effect. This writing pattern is used to describe the relation of a cause and its effect. For example, why did something happen? What is the cause for it? What are its effects? For example, why did coronavirus got spread so rapidly? What were the effects of this rapid spread? 5th pattern is problem and solution. Now, in this expository writing pattern, the writer identifies the problem and then proposes the solution. For example, spread of coronavirus is so dangerous for a highly populated country like ours. What are the problems involved in limiting coronavirus spread, and how those problems can be resolved. These were the main writing patterns of expository writing. Now, after this, let's discuss what makes an expository writing good. First of all, a good expository writing must be informative. That is, it must give us important information about the topic focused. Secondly, it must have clarity. That is, the points focused in the writing must come out clearly. Third is, a good expository writing must have organization. Facts and information must be organized in a systematic way. Next is that an expository writing should be unbiased. It must present facts in a proper way. Last is, a good expository writing must be written objectively. It must not reflect writer's subjective opinion. Now, these were the main features of a good expository writing. After expository writing, now we come to the fourth form of writing, that is persuasive writing. With its title, it is clear that this writing form is written to persuade someone. It is meant to persuade the reader to agree with writer's idea. Persuasive writing attempts at convincing the reader to change their opinion with the logic and argument provided by the writer. Author presents the argument and then tries to convince readers with his point of views and reasons. For effective persuasive writing, we must follow certain steps. First of all, we must state the argument clearly. We must clarify what is the issue all about and on what side this article will be focusing. Secondly, clarify its relevance to the readers. The writer must clarify to the readers why it is important for them to understand this issue properly. Thirdly, we must sequence the facts and information. It means we must pre-decide how and in which order we will present our concerns and arguments. Next, we must form and state our conclusions. Writers must state the collected facts and conclusions derived clearly. After this, the writer must persuade readers properly. Writer must emphasize that his conclusions are based upon facts well collected and analyzed. Lastly, the tone of persuasive writing must be confident enough to persuade the reader. After persuasive writing, let's come to argumentative writing, which is very similar to persuasive writing. Just like persuasive writing, the purpose of argumentative writing is to win readers to the author's side. It is to make readers agree and accept the stand taken by the writer. It uses evidences to support the idea focused by the writer. Its purpose is to persuade the reader to agree with the argument made. It is not based on writer's thoughts and opinion, rather it is based on facts and evidences in support of the argument being made. Argumentative writing is objective in nature. That is, it focuses on presenting facts and information. The writer convinces the reader by presenting data in an objective way. However, argumentative writing is different from persuasive writing as it presents only one side of facts. Now, the last form of writing is essays of definition. These are based on a concept, idea, or term. It is written with the purpose to clarify a particular idea. These provide answers to various questions, including what, how, why, and when, as to provide a complete understanding of the subject. It is mostly concept-based. Now, we have come to an end of this topic, so let's summarize. In this lesson, we focused on forms of writing. We have also discussed that selection of form of writing depends on the purpose of writing. The writer selects the appropriate form accordingly. We discussed about descriptive writing. We use this form of writing when we wish to describe about a person, place, topic, or event. Then we discussed about characteristics of descriptive writing and the ways by which we can help our students engage with descriptive writing. Then we discussed about second form of writing, that is narrative writing. We discussed about its main elements and also discussed how can we help our students to engage in narrative writing. After that, we took up expository writing. The purpose of expository writing is to explain facts, ideas, or beliefs. Then we discussed about styles of expository writing and characteristics of good expository writing. After this, we discussed persuasive writing. As we shared persuasive writing, attempts at convincing the reader to change their opinions with the logic and argument provided by the writer. We also discussed about how to write a persuasive essay. Last, we discussed about argumentative writing and essays of definition. Learners, I wish to specify, as a teacher, it is very essential for us to expose our students to all these forms of writing. Given the opportunity to engage with the good quality literature, our students will be able to understand the required form of writing effectively. It will be great if we as teachers do try to engage with all these forms of writing. Then you will be able to understand that form better, and you can also share that with your students. You can share your experiences that which writing you enjoyed the most. With this, I end this lesson. Thank you and happy learning.